notebook and your pen and continue the work. Would you be willing to read for?
Kids and teenagers from Niš had an opportunity to participate in a creative writing workshop by Mary Lee Cunningham at the American Corner. Professor Cunningham is a professor at the Houston University where she teaches creative writing. The idea of the workshop was to help talented students to develop their potentials in creative writing and critical thinking skills.
I was just upset because I couldn't be alone.
Moja mama je videla ovo i onda smo prvo počeli u biblioteku da idemo, a onda smo vidjeli da ima radionice i tako smo počeli u radionici da idemo.
Pišem poeme, tekstove i u tom trenutku šta osjećam uglavnom na papir nanesem i trudim se da to bude što iskrenije i što jasnije za bilo koga ko čita.
Čitam dečje knjige, Harry Potter i tako dalje.
What is most important to a creative writing?
So, it's our books, it's our novels, our poems, our short stories, our screenplays, our movie scripts. All that is creative writing. Different people have different processes. Ernest Hemingway liked to write on top of a refrigerator, and he wrote very fast, and he wrote certain days and he didn't work other days. Emily Dickinson wrote 2,000 poems as she was staying at home and watering her ferns. And then she didn't bother to publish any but 2 of them. I got her sister published them for her. So I think that actually the process of doing creative writing is different from different people.
And what is your process of creative writing?
So I have a brand new book coming out with Amphora Literary Press, associated with the Pennsylvania Review that actually published Thomas Paine in the American Revolution. That's how old and prestigious my press is. I'm very excited about it. It's a group of 120 poems. And I published some poems early on in my career, but mostly I did what I tell students not to do, which is I wrote the poem and then I tucked it away. And I wrote another poem and I tucked it away. Until I realized I had 120 pages worth of poetry. And I got this into a kind of a now or never mode, where if you're gonna publish your poetry, you need to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And so I sent my poetry out, and within 17 hours, I had a contract on my computer.
What about self-confidence? Is it important for a writer?
Absolutely, because after the writer writes, and it is important to be critical, and it is important to do visions and revisions, to make changes. That's so important. But it's also important not to tear it up and throw it away and say this is no good, and I would be embarrassed to see it published, and I'm never going to send it out. One of the things that the creative writer instructor must do is stop that hypercritical process that caused Emily Dickinson to write 2,000 poems and to only publish 2. That belief that you're putting yourself in so much danger by sending something out into the world that you don't dare send things out into the world.
How to do that?
That is easier said than done, yes, because so often the very good writer is the hypercritical writer who will not speak in class and who doesn't believe that his or her writing is worthwhile, and that requires a constant encouragement. You can't make a student write. A student will run away quite often.
So you're working with young people here in American Corner.
Yes.
Are they as good as young people who write at Europe, at the world?
Well, you have Nobel laureates for literature here in Serbia. We certainly, after Tesla, we certainly owe you something. So at some level here, the young writers in Serbia give me great hope for the continuation of the literature in Serbia.
Did this modern technology makes it easier for a writer to gain his confidence?
Of course. Young people are very, very comfortable in in the internet world. They're comfortable with blogging. They're reading their favorite bloggers. They're comfortable with accessing the internet for many of the things that they read, certainly as well. For good or for bad, you're going to see the quality of the best of free internet writing get better. And I think it's very important to encourage our young readers into not only going to libraries, but also looking for the best of the great internet bloggers. And there are some great internet bloggers.
You've been to Initial Jazz Festival. What are your impressions about it?
So it was wonderful and beautiful. There were thousands and thousands of people there. I loved the idea of the 3 stages, and then I loved the idea of the graphics on either side of all the stages. I love the idea of using the medieval fort, certainly, as well as the venue for it. But my very favorite thing about it was the quality of the music, the quality of the jazz. I teach a literature, art, and architecture of New Orleans course in cooperation with the jazz professor who teaches a Jazz of New Orleans course. So I have taken jazz courses by virtue of my co-teaching with the jazz professor. And I expected to see pretty good jazz, but I was delightfully surprised to see great jazz.
If you write something creative about Nishul, what it would sound like?
I asked the students who had been to the jazz festival, to your music festival, to place their first short story or the first chapter of their book at a place. It had to be a niche. And for those who had gone to the jazz festival, as I knew many of the volunteers for the American Corners had participated in the jazz festival, since the United States Embassy and the American Corners were one of your many, many sponsors. And I liked the fact that you had such a variety of sponsors. I love that as well. Several of the students who would work for 3 days in the jazz festival did write a short story about safety in the park and feeling safe as they were listening to music with all the people around. And then the alternative, and that is no people around, and that lack of safety one feels in a territory in which there aren't lots of people and things like that. And I invite you to look at some of the writing that was written using a plot and a setting that was related to the events of the Jazz Festival.
Mrs. Cunningham, thank you for your time.
My pleasure, thank you.
You know, there's a lot to be said for writing in the middle of the night.
And I realized I won't be able to stay with you forever. And that's when I came to realize that I cannot do anything without it revolving around.
Brava! Very nice!